Thank you all for coming today. Welcome to the webinar on business planning for agritourism enterprises. My name is Tara Pereira. I'm the Executive Director of Vermont Fresh Network. This is the third webinar in our fall series in partnership with University of Vermont Extension. If you missed the previous two webinars, the videos are on our website, and we'll drop a link into chat for that. As we were discussing webinar topics for this series, agritourism was always going to be on the list. VFN also manages diginvermont.com, a site devoted to culinary tourism and agritourism. We also develop resources in partnership with UVM Extension for farms in support of agritourism business. And over the last 6 years, there's been such growth, and it's been such an amazing experience to see all the support and growth of agritourism in Vermont. Now, I want to introduce the moderator. Dr. Lisa Chase is a professor at UVM Extension and director of the Vermont Tourism Research Center. She's been working in Vermont for over 20 years to support farms with agritourism and direct sales. Lisa has been a very important partner in VFN's work in agritourism. Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you for being a partner, and take it away.
Thanks so much, Tara, and thanks to all of you for joining us here on the screen. We've got a great panel lined up to talk about business planning from the sort of expert side, the consultant side, as well as business planning from the farm side. And we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of business planning for agritourism enterprises in just a moment. But first, I wanted to take a moment to see who is here in the virtual space with us. I'm going to launch a poll that asks you to describe yourself. So if you wouldn't mind checking the boxes, and you can check more than one, whether you're a farmer or a nonprofit, government agency, educator, etc. We know a lot of people wear a lot of hats, so feel free to check as many boxes as are appropriate to the various jobs you may have. And when you're done checking the box, if you are willing to share who you are, Vermont's a small state, and we're guessing we know some of you. So if you're willing to share who you are, please take a moment to type into chat and make sure you click everyone, not just the hosts and panelists. If you're willing to share with everyone who you are, what farm or business or organization you're with, and where in Vermont you are. Now I'm going to end the poll and share the results. And you can see that we are 3/4 farmers with a handful of extension, nonprofits, educators, researchers, lots of business owners who are also probably farmers as well, joining us today. And I've got one more poll that I'd like to share. And this is specifically about business planning. We're wondering who here already has a business plan. We're wondering if you have one in general for your whole farm or business, if you have one, but maybe not for agritourism, if you're working on it, if you're just kind of dipping your toe in the water and even just not even sure you want to have one at this time. And feel free if you want to expand a little bit more about where you're coming from with business planning, what your status is and what your interest in it is. Feel free to drop a little bit more into chat. I'm seeing chat lighting up with so many familiar names and farms. Really excited to be here with all of you. All right, I'm going to end the poll and share results. So it looks like we've got a fairly business plan savvy group with us here today. Almost a third have business plans, not necessarily for agritourism, but they've got some sort of business plan. And we've got about 40% working on it. And I'm just going to let you in let you into the business planning knowledge, which is you're never really done. It's a working document. It's a work in progress. So even when we talk about having a complete business plan, we talk about it as a complete draft of a business plan, because the idea is that things are going to change on your farm, and you're going to want to keep going back to that business planning document to keep it fresh, keep it updated as things change with your farm and with your business. And it's great to see that we've got about a quarter of the folks here are interested in having one and haven't started yet. So even though we've got a range of different sort of levels and savviness and experience with business planning, what we're going to do today is give a broad overview of business planning with a focus on agritourism enterprises. And I think it's going to be relevant for everyone here, whether you already have a business plan or whether you're working on it or whether you're just getting started. And I want to say that I'm going to introduce our panelists now. And as they're talking, feel free at any point, drop questions into Q&A. You can put them in chat if that's easier for you, but if you're able to put them in the Q&A box on the bottom of your screen, that's helpful. It might be on the bottom of your screen, or it might be with the 3 dots. That's very helpful because it keeps the Q&A separate, the questions separate, so we can easily find them, because we hope to have a lot of time for questions and answers. And right now, I want to introduce my colleague, Zach Smith. He's also at University of Vermont Extension, and he has many decades of working in agritourism, not only in Vermont, also in Ecuador and other places around the world. And he also has many decades of working with business planning. So he's the perfect partner on this project. Zach, I'll turn it over to you now.
Thanks, Lisa, and thanks for bringing up the many decades point. Now I'm feeling a little old. But let's go, way back, many decades. I'm an agricultural business educator at UVM, which means I work in a variety of areas with farmers, but I primarily specialize in diversifying revenue streams on a farm. And it got this experience, why I got involved with agritourism. Started in Ecuador when I was in Peace Corps. I was a small business development volunteer in 2005 through 2007. And yes, I specialized working in agricultural communities and on teaching people how to diversify, or working with people on diversifying revenue streams. And everything that happened in this incident with agritourism actually came from a very random suggestion, which I'll explain in the next slide, please. So there I am with the Pacha Uchiwari family, or some representatives of the Pacha Uchiwari family, who were one of the main farms that I worked on on a very frequent basis. And they were very, very entrepreneurial. There were 11 people, 11 children and their parents working on this farm, and some grandchildren. And they just kept on saying, Zach, we want to do this, we want to do that. And I ran them through a battery of business planning sessions, and we started by going organic. We opened up an egg production enterprise. We started going to parks and selling our products at parks. But then at those parks, what we were doing was we were inviting people back to the farm, because this farm was so absolutely beautiful, and it was right next to a major town. And so one time, a buyer from a supermarket came out, and he backed up his big truck, and he was checking everything out on the farm. And he just was like, hey, you guys should invite people out here to the farm to at least pick their own food that they want to take home with them. And we thought that was a great idea. And then immediately some people said, well, how about we have them pick what they want to eat, and we make them a dinner here out on the farm. And it just turned into an absolute success for this family. I became obsessed with agritourism from that point on, and throughout the years, when the opportunity presents itself, I integrate the possibility of going into agritourism planning for business diversification, or just starting off a farm business. Next slide, please. So why agritourism? Why are we here right now talking about agritourism? Like I was mentioning, for first and foremost, for farmers and ranchers, I think increasing and diversifying farm income is really important, especially for here in Vermont for many situations. You can sell and market your farm products via attracting people to your farm. And by attracting people to your farm, you're allowing yourself to connect with customers. And as we all know right now, the customer base is getting very interested in knowing where their products are coming from, what they're consuming is coming from. And so it's a wonderful opportunity to connect with customers and educate the public. As we know, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And it's a really wonderful opportunity to be able to educate the public and connect with the community while you're at it. For the public, as we know, you have access to local farm products. What an amazing opportunity when there's agritourism involved. And being connected to the food system is so important now, not just economically, but also community wise. And people are looking to do different things. I mean, ever since the pandemic started, people were doing local tourism, and I think it's just always going to keep on growing because people are interested in, trying something different, not just going to an amusement park. And for communities, maintaining a rural ambiance, especially like our wonderful rural communities here in Vermont, is very important. But there's also economic benefits. A lot of agritourism enterprises are not just one person. There's many people that get involved in the community. And obviously some recreational activities are always available on agritourism initiatives. So now we're getting into the fun part in the next slide. Many of you in the audience do know me. I do a lot of business planning with people. A lot of people don't like how much I like business planning, but I do it because of the purpose. And it really it's not just about having a business plan in hand. It's about the process of going through the business planning process because a lot of people have such amazing ideas, but sometimes they just can't ever get it out of their head. They forget about it. They defeat themselves sometimes. So going through a type of a semi-rigid planning process allows an entrepreneur to deeply consider their ideas, their entrepreneurial ideas, and also you consider different things that you might not have considered in the past. A lot of the farmers here are these wonderful craftsmen entrepreneurs that are obsessed with their passion, and sometimes something can slip through the cracks. And so by going through a business planning process, what you're doing is a form of risk management in itself. And sometimes as you go through this process, you're going to find out that maybe this idea doesn't make sense. Obviously, the first thing that people go to is, maybe it's not going to make financial sense, but there could also be other hiccups along the way. Marketing, organization, production, aligning with other people, especially when it comes to agritourism, is really important. So the next slide, please. And just talking more about challenges and what specifically with business planning and agritourism. There's so many things to consider when it comes to land use, as some of us have experienced here. Land acquisition. This is similar to almost all agricultural enterprises, but agritourism has some nuance within these areas. Funding, creative funding is something that's very interesting that could be talked about perhaps in the panel. Considering your proximity to population bases, marketing activities. So these are just a few things that we can talk about, but I'm going to talk a lot about later and when I introduce a new tool that we're going to talk about. But there are a few resources out there. There's that agricultural marketing resource center. There's obviously extension services at Vermont and other extensions. IANTA is something interesting to look into if one's looking into integrating Indigenous and Native American perspectives on agritourism. And the Global Agritourism Network has gained quite a bit of momentum in the last several years, and it has some great resources out there. But so we created a plan that we're going to talk about. It's called Ag Plan, and I'll introduce it a little bit later, but it really brings all these resources together in a very rigid format. And I'm just doing a plug for it right now, but we'll talk about it a lot more in later on in this session. But thanks a lot, and I'm glad to be here, and I'm especially glad to be here with the next presenter on the panel, Janet Stewart. Take it away, Janet.
My name is Janet Stewart. I jointly own 3 enterprises with my husband, Ray Shatney. Our Shat Acres Highland cattle breeding stock. And everybody, when they see the sign, they think it's so funny that it says Shat Acres, and they think they've come up with a really cute joke. We repeatedly have to say it's because Ray's last name is Shatney, and his grandfather started Shat Acres Farm in 1915. So it's been going on more than 100 years. It started as a dairy farm. And our breeding stock is the oldest registered fold of Highland cattle in the United States. Ray's father bought the first Highland in 1966. And we sell breeding stock all over the United States. We have our breeding in 31 states and 3 countries. In 1980, Ray's dad sent a Highland calf to Australia and basically started the genetic line in Australia when they drew embryos on Tiger Lily. Our second enterprise is Greenfield Highland Beef. We sell 100% grass-fed and finished Highland and Highland Beef Shorthorn Cross beef. We are a cow-calf operation. Every piece of beef that people purchase was born and raised on the farm. We never take in stockers and feeders, and for some farmers that may mean something, and for some that don't. We want our calves to nurse for at least 6 or 7 months, and we want them to live on the farm in as much of a humane manner as we would raise any of our breeding stock. All of our beef is sold within 40 miles of our farm. We want to have a local footprint. We could diversify and go to cities, but we want local consumers to be able to have our product. Our third and newest enterprise is Highland House Farmstay. And that is where the business plan comes in. And I can talk about it now, or I can wait until later on to discuss that. But we own 2 farms. One is in Greensboro Bend, one is in Plainfield, and they're about 45 miles apart. And something is always in the wrong place. Either a piece of machinery for haying is on the wrong farm. There's a cow out and we're 45 minutes away. There's a cow calving and there's nobody there to monitor it. And my husband was commuting at least every day and sometimes twice a day back and forth from Plainfield to Greensboro. That, we realized, was not helping our quality of life. And so it was a big decision to divest of the Greensboro farm that was Ray's family farm. And it was hard for him to think about not having a farm there, but we've been working with Zach and we've been working with the Vermont Land Trust, and the farm will be conserved for perpetuity in farmland and also for public access with hiking trails. And so that is sort of the condition that Ray required in order to let go of that farm. So with downsizing to just one farm, we had to figure out how to have less animals because the majority of the animals were on the Greensboro farm and we have to have them all on the Plainfield farm, which is a lot smaller. And we also thought about, what do we really love to do? What we really love to do is share the gifts that we have. We have one of the most beautiful views in the state of Vermont. And in my unbiased opinion, and many people have been here, who step out onto the hillside and say that they've landed on a piece of heaven, it's not fair to not share that with people. And so we thought about how we could do that. We also have the most beautiful Highland cattle that I've ever seen, and again, the oldest registered fold. And Highland cattle have a way of bringing peace and comfort to people when they comb them, when they commune with them. And so we thought about how could we share those gifts and even maybe get someone to pay us to do that. And so we looked into agritourism. We decided to build a 3-bedroom home on our property in Plainfield where people can stay. They look out the window and they look at the cows. They eat right outside their balcony deck. They look out at the mountains all the way to New York and the Adirondacks. And they learn about agriculture. They learn how meat can be raised humanely and how you can do regenerative agriculture to improve the soils and be respectful of the land that we've been entrusted with. And we have met the most amazing people through agritourism. That's the benefit we didn't expect, is that every time someone comes, Ray and I look at each other and we say, those were the nicest people we've ever met. And then we do it again when the next people come. I think that we do funnel a certain group of people and clientele who are interested in learning about farming, who want to be with the Highland cows. And we feel very blessed to do this. We could not have done it without a business plan. And I'll save that for the next part.
Thank you so much, Janet. Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I've been to your farm and spectacular views, and there is something incredibly calming and peaceful about brushing your cows. Now I'm going to turn it over to Kristen Broussard from the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. And actually, she was with me one of the times when we visited your farm and we were brushing the cattle together, saying, you know, Janet is really giving all of us and everyone who comes to your farm a gift by sharing that experience with us. That said, there are certain regulations and rules and zoning and things that you have to take into account when you do open your farm to visitors. And we're very fortunate that Kristen is the agritourism specialist at the Agency of Agriculture, and she's going to fill us in a little bit about these pieces that are important to take into account before, during, and as you're working on your business plan.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here with you today. As Lisa said, I'm Kristen Broussard. I'm the Marketing and Agritourism Specialist for the Vermont Agency of Agriculture. I support the Vermont brand of food and agriculture through a variety of different marketing initiatives, but my specialty and focus is around agritourism. The agency, really sees agritourism as a critical aspect in the future resiliency and viability of Vermont's agricultural sector, from diversifying and increasing revenue from farmers to promoting tourism to the state and agricultural literacy among consumers. Really, the benefits of promoting agritourism in our state are just too many to name. So I work to help spread the word about the incredible food and farm experiences that we have in the state to visitors and Vermonters alike, while also supporting farmers to adopt and find success with agritourism. Business planning is a critical component of making all of that work. So I'm excited to be here with you today to talk a little bit more about that. As Lisa said, of course, an important part of planning your agritourism business is understanding the different rules and regulations related to that type of enterprise. So that's what I'm going to talk about here today. So I'm going to start off with Act 31 of 2021. We hear often from Vermont farms who are hesitant to get started with agritourism due to concerns around their liability when having visitors on site. So fortunately, the Vermont legislature passed a law in 2021 that established a limitation on that liability for agritourism operators. It acknowledges the inherent risks that are associated with being on a farm and participating in this type of activity, and it shifts those risks to the consumers as long as they're properly warned. So to be protected by Act 31, you must post a very specific required warning notice, which you can see the exact language on your screen right now. And this needs to be posted in a really clearly visible location at or near the main entrance of any agritourism activity that you're hosting. And it also needs to be written into any signed contract that you have with a customer. And just as a reminder, this is an added layer of protection, but you do still need to make sure that you're protected with good insurance. So make sure that you're not just relying on this law completely, consult with your insurance agent, but it's really nice to have kind of this backup layer of protection through this law that the Vermont legislature passed to support and show the understanding of how important agritourism is for our state. The Vermont Fresh Network has some signs that are available for purchase. I believe Tara might have one that she's able to show us later when she's back on screen. These are really nice metal signs that you can hang up. They're super durable, but you can also make one yourself. You just need to be sure to follow the specific instructions that are laid out in the law and to put this wording on there exactly. So I'll drop a link in the chat to an article we wrote with a little bit more information on this law and what exactly those requirements are. Next up, I'm going to chat a little bit about Act 143 of 2018. So this is the farm that created the accessory on-farm business designation. I'm not going to go into too much detail here because this law is incredibly complex. If you know anything about it, that's what you know. And it's very nuanced, and everyone's situation in relation to the law is unique. But I wanted to note that the law does exist and that it will impact any agritourism business. And just a quick note that the intention behind creating this category of accessory on-farm business was to give farms some flexibility in expanding into other farming related ventures without triggering Act 250 zoning. So there are two categories of accessory on-farm businesses. It's the storage, preparation, processing, and sale of qualifying products. And then there's the educational, recreational, or social events. And these need to feature agricultural practices like teaching a workshop, qualifying products, so products you grow on the farm, and there's a specific definition for that, or both. So this sets a standard, but it's really up to the municipalities to regulate. And so that's really one place that there's been some confusion and discrepancy across the state. So the agency and our partners are working now to solicit feedback and report back to the legislature with recommendations for improvements, hoping that will be taken up in this session or the next. And like I said, just a really quick overview of that. You can feel free to contact me directly if you have any questions about accessory on-farm business, and I can point you to the right person for consultation. And then finally, I wanted to point you to the agritourism regulatory tool. So in addition to the two acts that I just mentioned, there's a whole host of other regulations, permits, and licenses that are required for different agritourism activities. So if you have a farm stay and room and meals tax, or you're serving prepared food, then it triggers health department permits. So there's a whole bunch of different things for different types of agritourism activities and in different towns throughout the state. So there's a great agritourism regulatory guide and checklist on UVM Extension's website that can help you navigate all of this. And so I will drop the links to those two tools in the chat as well right after this. That's all for me.
Thank you, Kristen. Now that we've sort of introduced our panelists and given you a little overview about some of the considerations involved in agritourism and in particular business planning for your agritourism enterprises, I want to turn it over to Zach to give us a little more detail. Hopefully some of you now are saying, I want to do this. How do I do this? What are the next steps? Zach, can you tell us more about that?
Sure. Thanks, Lisa. So I just want to, introduce what is, this agricultural or ag tourism business planning tool. And first of all, I'll just let you know, we're gonna send out many links and follow-up links in how to access this tool. I also want to let you know, and I'll iterate this, that I'm always available for one-on-one sessions to walk through this, but we're gonna do a quick walk through this with this. This planning tool was created with a multi-organizational team that specializes, from all over the nation that with individuals that specialize in agritourism. And it's housed at Ag Plan, which is at basically the University of Minnesota. If you're unfamiliar with Ag Plan, the University of Minnesota has a department that specializes in automated planning systems, from everything from finance to business planning. So within Ag Plan, next slide, please. You'll notice that there are a variety of different plans in there, but right there, kind of towards the middle, you can pick an ag plan that is just for agritourism. And next slide. And what I'll do here is just like kind of show you what it looks like on the inside. But like I was mentioning, if anybody has ever written a business plan, you're going to recognize that there are some very familiar sections here. And you know, all of these sections are just very, very important for any business plan. But the elements of this part of this tool are specifically catered towards agritourism. And you'll notice not only are you able to see, like, you know, what a business description is, but also near the bottom there or the middle of the screen, what we have are tips, resources, samples, and comments. And I'll talk about comments in a minute, but the tips and the resources are just meant to help you align your thoughts and, you know, think about certain considerations that should be included while you're going through your business plan. In the next slide, please. Another example is your financial plan. You know, this is, I mean, like what we're doing is kind of going through the major elements here, but a financial plan includes, you know, your major financial statements like a balance sheet, cash flow statement, income statement, etc. And then, yeah, just for example, you can see, like, you know, what tips are available to help you elaborate on this. One of the major points of or advantages of using this tool is that it's self-paced. So you can tackle different parts at different times, however you feel that you want to, you know, proceed with this. And, you know, should you need to, you know, go dive deep into something that you're unfamiliar with, you can follow our resources, you can follow our tips, you can look at our samples. And, you know, the next slide actually will show an example of, you know, how we put together a financial statement. There's a video that goes right in there that's made by the team at University of Minnesota. Yeah, the next one shows an example of how to use samples. This comes from, well, what we've had is we've had several people from around the nation that have, from a variety of different enterprises that have shared their business plans with us. And what we've done is obviously made them anonymous, but it's something to get you going, perhaps when you might be hitting a little bit of a writer's block, if you will, while you're in the planning process. And then in the next slide, there's a really interesting feature, and that is for people who can collaborate with you. You can bring in other people to take a look at your plan, and within that plan, you can ask the person a question right there in the comment section, or a person might see something while they're reviewing their plan or your plan, and they can comment on that. So like, for example, if you're working with me on something like this, you can give me a link to your ag plan, and I can go right in there and review it, ask you questions, or address the questions that you've already asked of me. This is a really, I think, important element of this tool, because it allows interaction, and it keeps everything all in one spot as you move forward with the planning process. And then right here, the next slide, if those of you who want to take a quick snap can take a step and go straight to Ag Plan to get started. I know this was a very fast introduction to Ag Plan, but what I can't iterate enough is to reach out directly to me. We can schedule a one-on-one and I can get you going, or just answer any questions that you may have. That's my plug for getting into Ag Plan and getting started.
Thanks, Zach. And I should let you know, actually, we can move to the next slide now, if you don't mind, Tara, Jesse, not sure who's managing the slides, that we know that business planning can be cumbersome. A lot of people need some structure around it. So we're actually planning a couple of online trainings and events this winter. What better time to do business planning than in the middle of the winter? I realize when you have livestock, there's never a good time, but at least for the fruit and vegetable growers, hopefully winter's a little slower before the sap starts running. So on January 23rd, we've got a webinar planned, just a 1-hour webinar, sort of like this webinar that will give more of an overview of what's involved with business planning using the Ag Plan tool. And then we've set up for people like me who require a little bit of structure and deadlines and someone to check in with them on, hey, how's it going? We've set up this series of online trainings, and they're every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern time, starting February 13th and going weekly through the end of March. So there's 7 sessions, and in each session, we introduce a new plan, a new section of the business plan, and give you homework and give you guidance on how to get that section done. So by the end of the program, you've got at least a draft of a complete business plan. If you're interested in learning more, here's another QR code for you. But what I want to do now, though, is stop sharing the slides for a little bit and get into a conversation, whether you use, and I will say AgPlan is just one tool. We're especially talking it up now because it's a brand new tool. Zach and I worked with a multi-state team, and we've just launched this agritourism template. But folks like Janet were doing business plans before we had this AgPlan tool, and Janet and Zach worked together on a business plan for Janet's new agritourism venture. So Janet, do you want to tell us a little bit about just the whole business planning process and experience?
Sure. I'm jealous about that new program where there is online support. That just sounds like an amazing use of every Tuesday afternoon at 1 p.m. I love that. I may start over again.
You don't
So,
need to start over, actually. You can join us and you'll be way ahead of everybody, but then you've got it online. And I
So,
should mention no cost for AgPlan.
I admit I was not enthusiastic about writing a business plan. After all, we had been in business nearly 2 decades without a business plan, and we were functioning, sort of. I had no clue what was making money, what was losing money, how to rectify the situation, how to do monitoring and adjusting for the future to make the business more profitable, never thinking about quality of life, never thinking about long-term decisions. However, when we had this dream of the agritourism house, we turned to the Vermont Community Loan Fund to secure funding, and guess what? They said I needed a business plan. And am I glad that somebody told me I had to do it? Because I don't know that I would have done it without needing it. Looking back, I did need it, but I was so busy doing other things that the priority sort of slid down to the bottom. And I said, I'll get to that when this is finished. And I'll get to that when this is finished. And it wasn't till I was required to have a business plan that I actually dove into it. It was overwhelming. There are a lot of components. What I did is I would look at the list of all the different things to do, and I'd say, what's easiest to do? And I do that part first. And then what's the next easiest? And it actually wasn't very long before it was completed. And now I can't wait to finish the end of the year books, which usually I dread, but I want to do it because I want to look at the business plan and I want to compare how accurate I was on some of those components. And I want to see what I didn't think of. One of the parts of the business plan, and I know every template is a little bit different, but the one that I did had a SWOT component, which is looking at some of the issues that might be problems. I'll have to look up exactly what SWOT, what components it was, the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. That's a big look inside, and that's a big stretch to force yourself to think about who else is out there doing this kind of thing. What do you have special? Luckily, we do have something special. We have Highland cows. And so that became a big part of how we promoted what we're doing, is that when people come to this farm stay, they get to work with the animals. And you know what we tell people? When they're up combing calves, we tell them they're working for us. And they look at us and say, really? And I said, yeah, because the more people that comb those breeding stock and the more voices they hear, and the big people and the little people and the babies and all of that, that means when that calf gets off the trailer somewhere in Minnesota or Arkansas, they don't say, where's Ray? This is not okay. Ray's not here. So they are working for us, and people want to feel useful. Mostly we're doing what we do anyway. The tractor takes the big bales out to the cows. You wouldn't think, if you're a farmer, that getting in a tractor and riding out to take a bale of hay would be a big thing. But everybody wants their picture taken in that tractor. And the smiles of people sitting in a tractor are priceless. So that was a component of the business plan, is how can we incorporate what we're already doing and make it so that it's profitable. Now, we had to think about what the expenses were going to be. And there were things that I never thought of, like the house cleaning. Every time somebody stays there, that farm stay has to be cleaned, and that's an expense. And it's not something that's really negotiable. We want more people to stay there. Guess what? That means more time that that house has to be cleaned. So there are things that I probably wasn't perfect about predicting, but I can go back, I can monitor and adjust, I can make it better for next year. I already know that my prediction for the gross income on the farm's day for the first year was off. I think that it will take a little bit longer than I had anticipated to get the volume of agritourism. So I'll need to look and see what my bottom line that I thought was going to be profit, that may be different. But maybe there are some places that I can cut back on some of the expenses. Maybe there are things that I can do that will monitor and adjust. So I highly recommend doing a business plan. Even if somebody doesn't tell you, you have to get a loan, because in the long run, you will be far more successful, and actually you'll be more comfortable with what you're doing, because you will have a better idea and a better handle on what it is that your costs and your profits are going to be.
Great advice, Janet. And I will
And
say,
the last thing that I want to say is, here is a copy of this business plan. And on the bottom, it says, making your Highland dreams come true. That's our motto for people who want to be with the Highlands. But you know what? This business plan made our dreams come true.
that's beautiful. And I think you are not alone, Janet, in that so many people don't do a business plan until they want a bank loan, or, there's some other reason they want to apply for a grant, or some other reason that makes them feel like they need to have a business plan. But yeah, it's an extensive process, and it is an undertaking, but I think the thing to keep in mind is that you can bite it off in little pieces. I imagine, Janet, you were very motivated. You had a deadline. Let's see, Kristen, I want to open it up to you. If you want to chime in with thoughts, reflections, questions on what we've been discussing?
Yeah, it's been really lovely to hear from Janet about the business planning process. And certainly, I understand the procrastination aspect of it. So I think it's really nice that you kind of had that push from the Community Loan Fund to put one together. And I just kind of want to make a note, if anyone is feeling like they need that similar type post, I think signing up for the Ag Plan series will be a really great way to give you that little extra nudge and accountability to show up week after week and work on it. So it's a really great tool. I've had the opportunity to dive into a little bit myself, so highly recommend it.
Zach and Kristen also both offered to share their direct contact info. So we can, you know, at some point we'll drop those links into chat. We're also going to follow up with an email. I think Jesse or Tara from Vermont Fresh Network will be sending out an email with a link to this video recording, as well as resources and other things we've talked about today, including our contact info. So if you're like wondering if this makes sense, just kind of thinking about it, feel free to reach out directly.
Yeah, and I'm always happy to hop on a call with anyone and help brainstorm or help point you in the right direction for different types of agritourism activities. So yeah, I'll put both my email and phone in the chat, and you can feel free to call me. If I don't know the answer to your question, I hopefully can find someone who does. And we have a lot of other resources we're building or working on at the agency right now related to agritourism that I didn't get a chance to mention here today. One thing that we do regularly is a marketing and agritourism blog. We've been doing it for about a year and a half. There's quite a few articles on there about different marketing different aspects of marketing for your farm and about agritourism. So I can drop a link to that in the chat. And then the best way to kind of keep up to date with when those blogs are released is to sign up for the agency's Sunday newsletter, which has a new name. It's the Vermont Ag Bulletin. If you're not subscribed to this, it is truly a really fantastic place to get updates on agritourism initiatives, the agritourism and marketing blog, all of the different grants that go out through the agency, different educational opportunities from partners, etc. So definitely highly recommend subscribing to that as well.
Thank you, Kristen. Zach, do you want to chime in with some additional thoughts and pieces around business planning?
Yeah, I'd just like to kind of address one little area, and that's the area of intimidation. I've been working in developing business plans for, like I said, I mean, going back to about 2005 is when I really got started working with farmers on business planning. And that was back when I had a battery of, I think it was around 200 questions that we would ask. 200 to 260 questions. And it was a real drag for a lot of people. And regular traditional plans are like, business plans are like that. And yeah, I've seen over the years, like so many people just say, Zach, I want to develop a business plan, but I don't know where to start. It's too intimidating. I just, it seems like too much. I don't have enough time. And I think that, you know, this ag plan format that we have right here is just perfect for that. The person who doesn't have a lot of time, doesn't know where to get started, feels a little intimidated. And it's just, it you know, it has that self-paced mechanism, and it also can bring in specialists like myself and then others that can be sourced as well to support you in person, and then also just guide you with all the resources that we've put together. I would have to say during our, you know, 6 to 7 months of planning this tool, our team, you know, really focused on making it easy to understand, making it less intimidating for folks, because the goal is we understand that you all have some amazing ideas, amazing potential experiences on your farms. And what we want to do is develop a tool that is going to increase the likelihood of making that happen for you. So So I highly encourage, to you to give it a whirl. And then also, if you still don't want to go in on your own, give me a call. And then the webinars and trainings that are coming up are going to dive deeper into each element of the plan. I definitely think that the training starting in February will be really, really good for someone who just wants to go little by little, diving deep into each element and offering you the ability to have some back and forth with me, with our other team members that could be present, and then also sharing amongst yourselves. I think that's a real good thing to do, and so I'm really excited to get this going. We've been talking about this for a very long time, and I'm glad to be here with everybody.
We've got a little bit of time for questions, and I see some questions coming in on chat. Here's a question for you, Janet, about your agritourism enterprises. So you've got the farm stay, you've also got private events on your farm. How was the business planning process in your agritourism in general, sort of balancing both those aspects?
So one of the things, and it was interesting, I went back through the business plan, which really isn't that complicated. It's 6 pages, which seems like a lot. A lot of that is financial things, and it's great to go back and read it, which I think is important to have something documented to go back and look at. But one of the things that was in there was to develop a new logo, a new website, and to have the option for people to be able to sign up for tours. So in addition to the farm stay, we offer farm tours for 1 hour. For years, people have said, can I just come see your cows? I just want to take some pictures. I just want to comb them. And we always said, sure. What we realized is that every time someone came, it took at least an hour or more of our time. And we needed to be compensated for that. So we developed a form on our new website where people can write and pick out a date and say they'd like to come. It's $125 for an hour. I worried about that at first. People seem to include that a lot in their vacation trips. So if somebody's traveling to Vermont, they look up and they see that they can come see a Highland farm. During that tour, we always have a cow or calf for them to comb. We go out into the field. We show them our rotational grazing and our intensive cell regenerative agriculture. We give them a package of our ground beef and take time for questions. And if we're putting some hay out, they get to ride out in the tractor. If we're wrapping bales, they get to push the lever to wrap the bales, which you would think is not a big deal, but that's a big deal. Everybody wants to get their picture taken doing that. So in addition to the farm stay, where all of that is included, if you stay at the farm stay, I send out an itinerary 2 or 3 days ahead of time of the activities they can participate in. Again, they're going to be pretty much what we're doing. Meet us at 9 o'clock at the spring gate and we'll walk you out to the barn and you'll get to see the calves that are being weaned. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, we're going to join and we're going to feed apples to our 1,000-pound twin steers. So that's included if they stay at the farm stay. But in addition, we do the farm tours. And I would say we do right now about 1 tour a month. In the summer, it was more often than that. But again, we've just met the most wonderful people, and people are so grateful for the opportunity to learn about where their food comes from and how it can be raised in a way that's not feedlot, not destructive of the soil. So that's part of the business plan, is including the income from farm tours in addition to the farm stays. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that was very helpful. And we've got another very relevant question in chat, which is, if a farm currently isn't doing agritourism and is sort of trying to figure out where even to begin, is it time to start business planning, or is that part of the business planning? And Zach, I'm gonna let you answer that question. And also there are some resources for farms to help them think through do I even want to do agritourism? And if so, farm stays, farm tours, you pick tastings, my gosh, field, school field trips. There's so many different types of experiences. What makes the sense for my farm and for me? We've got some tools that help people think through that. So Tara or Jesse can drop into a link into chat for that. And Zach, let us know your thoughts on, is it too early to start business planning, or is that part of the process?
Obviously I would like to say directly, it's never too early to start business planning, but it depends on what you're actually undertaking. I would say for this business, for this tool that we're talking about, this planner, it is okay to just come in and start it and get, and like check everything out. But it is a good idea to have at least some ideas of what you would like to do, and go through this process. Another thing I'll just say really quickly, and something that I focus on and highly encourage is, you can either talk to me directly about this or go online and look around about it, but just, look into like an idea generator, a brainstormer, a feasibility study type of thing. I'm obsessed with feasibility studies, which I basically look at as a precursor to diving into creating an actual business plan. But that being said, this tool does allow you to ask yourself some questions about what you will be doing. It encourages you to develop your business description, like who you are, where you are, what are you going to do? This tool does really help you craft those thoughts. I mean, if you have something in your mind that you want to do. So yeah, I would say feel free to go and check it out, but also it is good to have a little bit of an idea of what you would like to accomplish moving forward, or have several ideas of what you want to do. The more the better, I think.
Thank you, Zach. We're running out of time here, so just want to give Zach, Janet, Kristen, here's an opportunity for a last word if you'd like to share one.
I think that question really was helpful, because you need to let yourself think for a little bit about what's going to work best for you. When we started, we thought we wanted to do weddings and hay rides and school trips and a lot of different things that would have taken much more infrastructure, tents, tables, chairs. And as we started thinking about it, we realized that wasn't best for us, that we should use what we already have and what we already know how to do. So that's just a thought as you're planning it. Don't be afraid to explore a lot of options and think about the pros and cons and think about what works best for you, because agritourism is very individualized. It's what's best for your farm, and what's best for your farm is going to be best for your visitors.
That's exactly right. Thank you so much. We do have a few more questions in chat that we can, we'll keep track of that, and we'll follow up one-on-one later. I really want to thank Zach, Janet, and Kristen for joining us today. Tara and Jesse for running this webinar. Amber Hunt behind the scenes, also running the webinar, and all of you for joining us, being here, asking great questions. Those of you who know me know that I always have grant reporting and different kinds of reporting to do. And I'm also always thinking about what's next. What can we do to help folks with agritourism? So in chat, there is a webinar survey. If you wouldn't mind taking a couple minutes to fill out that survey, asking you about your experience today, asking you if you would like someone to follow up with you about agritourism business planning. You can say no, we won't be offended. And asking what else would be helpful beyond this webinar, beyond agritourism business planning. How can we be helpful? And now I'm going to turn it over to Tara to close us out.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm going to share my screen for a moment here. This has been so interesting, and so I hope a lot of farms take you up on the opportunity here, because it's and Lisa, you mentioned this was free, correct? Working one-on-one. So I think that it's so relevant and helpful for folks. But Anyway, thank you all for joining us today. Like Lisa had mentioned, there's a link in chat for the survey. Please let us know how this webinar, how helpful this webinar was for you. We want to hear from you just about what you need to succeed. So we're interested in future ideas for webinars, that sort of thing, or workshops. I wanted to let everyone know we have a event coming up, our annual Vermont Fresh Network annual meeting. So I hope to see you all there. Anyone can attend, members, non-members. We like to bring everyone into the conversation. Also, you'll see that the webinar, there's a little QR code there. We're so, we love the QR codes here. The video of this webinar will be posted to the Vermont Fresh Network website. And to learn more about Vermont Fresh Network and our member benefits, visit our website or shoot us an email. Stay in touch. Thank you, everyone.